Hi, welcome to Anaprime Recap. You awaken in a fantasy game world in the body of an extremely strong skeleton warrior, with countless bizarre skills, able to defeat demons and magical creatures. We are in the anime, Skeleton Knight in Another World, episodes 1, 2 and 3. In an unknown world, a powerful warrior wakes up from under a tree, and upon awakening he realizes that he doesn't know where he is at all, but when he sees that he is wearing great armor, he understands that this is Ark, the character he used to play with in a video game. His avatar carried with him the sacred armor of Belinus that possessed the blessing of light and the fire element, the overcoat of the night sky that delivered the blessing of darkness along with a powerful regeneration effect, the sacred shield of Tutates capable of resisting even abnormal damage, and finally, the sacred sword of lightning, Kalidbog wrapped in lightning, creating devastating thunder. After remembering all the statuses of his character, the young man recalls that he fell asleep while playing, and when he woke up, he was inside the universe of the game itself. As he wonders if this was really just a dream, he decides to use one of his many abilities, Wyvern Slash, firing at high speed a powerful blow capable of cutting in half several trees in the area. He also tests one of his spells, Conjuring Fire, which shoots an incredible fireball from one of his hands that quickly burns the desired target. The player remembers that his character's main class was Celestial Knight and his secondary class was Pontiff. However, the young man realizes that he can use the abilities of all the classes he has used in the past until now, so he has a gigantic number of spells and magics to conjure. The protagonist is happy with the situation. After all, he was realizing the dream of any gamer in the world, to be part of the universe of his favorite game. Then, he notices that he is hungry and needs to look for a town to buy some food. The problem is that he is without any money. He uses his Gath magic for teleportation, but is quickly sent to the top of a precipice, falling from an immense height. The warrior returns to the top by climbing over the rocks and realizes that this made sense, for that spell sends the conjurer to a city that had already passed, and since he had arrived in that world a short time ago, he had no previous destination. In order to move around to get out of that place, the knight uses his dimension move ability, teleporting in short directions without having to walk or run. Upon arriving in the nearest town, Louvierte being the one around a large castle, the warrior mingles with the locals, arousing no suspicion from anyone, but he is still starving. Walking through the commercial area, he comes across a large piece of meat being roasted, but unfortunately he cannot buy it. When passing through a strange alley, he notices that two people are exchanging information about something secret and important. One of them ends up being disappointed with the quality of the information and leaves. When passing the night, the young man realizes that it was a real elf. He is incredibly excited to see her because that world was becoming more and more fantastical. On leaving the place, the warrior comes across a mercenary association, a place where, by performing some missions, he would receive money as a reward. When he arrives at the establishment, he asks the receptionist about the jobs he can do, but the man answers that first he must have a mercenary's license, and to obtain it, he must pass a test. The knight could choose between eliminating animals, magical creatures or thieves, and bringing proof that he has accomplished the task, he will obtain the license to begin new quests. And in this way, the warrior begins the first step in his adventure. In a forest not far from the city, he eliminates 2 boars with great ease, and intended to catch more, when suddenly he is surprised by a large, totally enraged orc. On the other hand, the protagonist was thrilled to see a fantasy creature up close. Without wasting any time, the knight eliminates the monster with just one powerful cut of his sword. Happy with his conquest, he hears a shouting noise nearby and upon observing the situation, realizes that it was a gang that was robbing a group of people. At that moment, all the guards protecting a beautiful young woman and her servant are defeated by the evildoers, who then start attacking the 2 defenseless women. The warrior continues observing the situation, and even though it is very clear what decision he should take, he reflects that those thieves are still human, and in this case, fighting all of them would be a disadvantageous PvP. After all, it would be just him against several simultaneous enemies. Thus, he trusts in his powerful armor and goes to the scene of the fight. Arriving behind one of the bandits, the warrior inflicts a powerful cut that breaks him in half. Frightened by the arrival of a knight, the other members of the gang begin to flee, but quickly they are all eliminated with the powerful Wyvern Slash that totally extinguishes their bodies. Ark asks if the young women are okay, and they answer yes and introduce themselves as Lauren Laria du Louvierte and her maid Rita. He then asks the 2 to exchange their torn clothes for new ones. While they are doing this, the young man marvels at the looting of the criminals' belongings, and to clean up the mess, the knight uses his fire magic to eliminate the remaining bodies that were there. The 2 young women thank him again and ask him to accompany them to the city. On the way, they ask the brave knight's name, and the player answers that his name is Ark. a warrior who is clearing the world on his journey. In the city, the Celestial Knight finally obtains his license as a mercenary and impresses everyone by having passed all 3 tests at the same time. The clerk informs him that he must take with him the magic stone that is obtained after defeating an orc, so that he can exchange it for better equipment. Ark then stays at an inn and celebrates the beginning of his journey with various types of food and drinks. A few days later, the knight receives his first important mission, that being to escort someone to a place to harvest medicinal herbs. A very simple task that will not attract any attention. Walking through the small Rada village, the warrior walks to the residence of the person requesting the job. When he arrives at the place, he realizes that it is a little girl named Marca, the one responsible for imitating his mission. In this situation, Ark remembers a quick conversation he had with the receptionist of the Mercenary Association, where the man told him to be gentle with his client. At that moment the knight didn't understand, but when he saw who the creator of the mission was, he understood that it was a small girl asking for help. The girl asks the two of them to leave quickly to begin their task, and the warrior without hesitation agrees. The two walk through the forest and the mercenary decides to ask his client the real reason he is being hired and why they had to collect special herbs so quickly. Marca then replies that her father had already passed away and he was responsible for going out and getting magic herbs to sell. With his death, her mother ended up having to do this work every day to earn some money. Upon hearing the story, Ark is touched by the little girl's attitude. After all, at her age, all he cared about was playing his video game. Further ahead, Marca finds a field with some medicinal herbs capable of healing wounds and improving the appearance of the skin. While the knight marveled at her intelligence, the warrior hears a noise coming from a bush. Placing himself in front of the girl to protect her, he moves the foliage and realizes that it was a small fox that was wounded. When he gets closer, she bites his finger, but does not cause him any pain. Still afraid, Ark tries to use his healing magic to help the little animal and incredibly manages to recover it. The girl is amazed at this because the warrior was able to use healing spells, something that only the priests had more practice. The little girl tells him to give his new pet a name, and after some thought, decides to name it Ponta, and so the three of them go off together in search of more medicinal herbs. Back in the village, Marca's mother appears with some food and is alerted by one of the guards that her daughter left home early with a huge warrior. At the same place, a hunter who has just returned from one of his missions tells everyone that he has seen an unknown wild monster in the forest. The trio approaches a vast area with a large tree in the center. The little girl runs towards it saying that it was a flowering kobumi tree. However, when she gets very close to the place, the little girl is surprised by a gigantic monster. This was a brutal basilisk, a creature that spits poisonous mist, has paralyzing claws and can petrify its targets, a full arsenal of abilities to affect anyone's status. The monster tries to attack Marca, but the little girl is saved by Ark, who uses his incredible speed. Then the monster shoots several poisonous jets from its mouth, causing anything that comes in contact with it to be eliminated in seconds. The warrior successfully dodges all the attacks and states that even a mid-level mercenary would have trouble facing that creature. Next, the protagonist receives several blows with the monster's claws, defending the girl and himself with his sword. The basilisk, enraged that he can't hurt him, conjures his petrification magic, turning everyone around him to stone, but Ark uses his holy shield of Tutates to protect them. Then, the Heavenly Knight strikes back and decides to end it once and for all. Using his judgment magic, he applies an incredible slash of light that cuts off the monster's head, and so the battle was over. Marca is impressed with all his strength, saying that everyone in the village will be amazed to hear about this, because that day there was a festival in the village. Upon hearing this, the warrior becomes fearful, asking the girl to keep what happened in the forest a secret. She agrees to Ark's request, and the young man is relieved with this. However, upon examining the monster's body, he notices that there was a kind of ring on one of its legs. A little further on, they observe the presence of a large wild boar, so the knight decides to take it to the village as an offering for the festival. In the village, he says that he only needs the tusks and the magical stone from the animal, and the hide and meat can be shared with all the villagers. Everyone is happy with the news. Marca meets her mother, who is happy to hear that her daughter as well. At the end of the day, the knight bids farewell to the little girl, saying that someday they will see each other again. The warrior receives a wreath from the girl's younger sister as a thank you, and returns to the city of Louvierte. Later that same night, a guild of warriors, spearmen and archers are struggling to defeat a giant basilisk, and after an arduous battle finally manage to eliminate it, leaving 15 casualties and 38 wounded at the conclusion of the mission. The head of the group spots another monster of the same species that was defeated with just one blow. His advisor tells him that observing the situation, there is a chance that only one person alone could accomplish such an act. Hearing this, the man says that this would be impossible, unless he was a god or a demon. In the city, Ark together with Ponta is getting ready to leave the next day on a new adventure, to carry out a more difficult mission. One night, the Celestial Knight was performing another of his jobs, this time facing some thieves who were doing illicit activities in a cave near the forest. All were defeated quickly and the warrior found a large amount of gold in the place, as well as some abandoned cages. As he is leaving the dungeon with his fox Ponta, he is surprised by a mysterious figure that attacks him without hesitation, delivering several swift blows with his sword. The warrior defends himself with no intention of counterattacking, while the creature calls him a bandit. In the midst of all the attacks, Ark recognizes the girl's face, she being the elf he met in the alley a few days before. The knight tells her that he is not one of the thieves, and the girl remains in disbelief, until she sees a Vulpix wind, a spirit creature that is also known as a cotton-haired fox. They are very wary and do not get used to just anyone. Observing this, the elf recognizes that the warrior was not a bandit but a mercenary who was completing the mission of eliminating the criminals in the cave. She explains to Ark that the thieves capture the elves to sell as merchandise, after all they are very valuable and sold for high prices, but the knight informs her that he has not seen any elves in the cave, only some empty cages. Hearing this, the elf bids farewell to the Silver Knight, but he offers to help her find the members of her race who have been captured. Still, she denies the aid of any human. The warrior understands that this can only be one thing, one of the events where help is to be given to a beautiful elven girl, and being a real gamer, he cannot let this opportunity pass him by. That same night, after eating and drinking, Ark realizes that he doesn't know her very well and doesn't even know her name, but he faithfully believes that he should help her, even though the girl says she doesn't need anyone's support. The next day, the knight uses his dimension move to move through a vast area in search of the elven forest, a place that is difficult to find. As he was walking around the place, he hears someone's cry for help. He hides behind some bushes and realizes that it was an elven child who was running away from a group of smugglers who were part of the elf market. She ends up failing in her escape and is then arrested along with other girls. Ark watches everything attentively, waiting for the right moment to enter the scene, but just as he was preparing to attack, the mysterious elf appears and quickly eliminates several of those bandits, showing fantastic mastery and speed with her sword. Udoran, the leader of the group, observes the situation they were in, and decides to blackmail the elf, telling her that if she continued with this, he would do terrible things to the elves he had already captured. The young girl is left with no way out and ends up being stopped by this threat, leaving her at the mercy of the bandits. That's when Ark enters the scene, using his dimension move behind the gang leader. He uses his powerful armor lariat blow, throwing him away, knocking the man unconscious with just that one move. The elf takes advantage of the knight's incredible entrance and quickly finishes off the other gang members. The warrior then frees the captive girls, but they are terrified by his gigantic and frightening appearance, and are only reassured when they are near their sister. The young woman then realizes that the little girls had mana-eating necklaces, which are responsible for not allowing any of them to use any kind of magic to escape, and she adds that she doesn't know how to remove them. Ark then tries to help and conjures his uncursed magic, freeing the girls from the cursed necklaces. He then uses his healing magic to recover one of the children from a sword wound. The elf is intrigued to see this because the warrior uses various magics without even reciting them, making her suspicious that he is no ordinary knight. At this point, the boy wins the trust of the girls with his kindness, and the warrior whistles, calling a messenger bird, informing him of what has happened and telling it to bring help to the rescued children. Ark asks the warrior about the creature and she tells him that it is a whispering bird, a spiritual being that can keep speech and deliver messages, this being the form of communication between elves from different locations. A short time later, the children are taken to safety by other elves who have heard the bird's message. The elf questions the knight about his integrity, saying that she has only met barbaric and dangerous humans up to that point. She then wishes to know who he really is. The silver warrior replies that his name is Ark, a simple traveling mercenary seeking adventure alongside his companion, Ponta. The girl finally introduced herself and told him her name was Ariane Glennis Maple, a warrior elf, and from that moment on he had her gratitude for what he had done. At this instant, the whispering bird returns once more and informs Ark that the young woman must go to the city of Diento, because other elves have been captured there. Hearing this, the elf asks Ark if she could hire his services as a mercenary. What adventure will Ark now face alongside Ariane and Ponta as his companions? Will he ever have his true identity revealed? What mysteries lurk in that strange fantasy world? So, what did you think of this anime? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like it and subscribe for more anime recaps. See you next time.